Following on from the past 3 podcasts I've done, I just wanted to get back to the point I was making about the Israelites. And maybe it came across slightly confusing, but I just want to anyway clear it up just for that purpose. Because it is, as I said, it is a kind of a confusing
I can empathize with that.
Yeah, because there's been different names given to the same people, and as I said, as we've already discussed, the timelines are changed, so it does make it very difficult. But just one thing I wanted to clear up was the Israelites, the people known as the Israelites, did not become the Israelites until Jacob. So do you remember we spoke about how Abraham and Sarah went into Egypt?
Mm-hmm.
So when Abraham and Sarah went into Egypt, they would not have been known as Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
They would have been known as Hebrew, or as they were known in ancient Egypt as the Aparu.
Okay.
Or the Iparu. So remember I said they were Bedouin tribes. So Bedouin tribes don't have any particular, they're travelers really, you know. So before Jacob, they would have been known as the Hebrew, the Aparu, or the Iparu in ancient Egypt, yeah.
Like Hiparu or Hiparu?
Hebrew.
Hebrew.
Or
Okay.
Aparu.
Aparu, that's what you're saying.
A-P-I-R-U. They wouldn't have been known as Hebrew in ancient Egypt now. They would have been known as Aparu, but that's where Hebrew comes from. So just to clarify, Abraham and Sarah originally going into Egypt would have been the Aparu or the Hebrew. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
It's only when it comes to Jacob. Now remember we said Sarah had a child with Thutmose III,
That's
King
right.
David. And that child produced Isaac. And Isaac was the father of Jacob. So when it comes to Jacob, I also said Abraham was the father of the Israelites. Well, effectively he would be the grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the father, the grandfather. Because he would have been the grandfather of Jacob.
Yeah.
So there was Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And when I say he was the grandfather, I mean in the conventional story. I've already explained that Isaac was the child of Thutmose III,
Right.
King David. So when it comes to Jacob, I explained yesterday the story of how Jacob laid his head on a stone and he had a dream. So I would say that the big significance of the Israelites is that they get their name from Jacob, who became known as Israel. But he became known as Israel after he climbed the 7-rung ladder to heaven and encountered God, as we said, wrestled with God, came back down the ladder, and God told him, from now on you'll be known as Israel. So it's from Jacob, who becomes Israel. From that point on, his sons become known as the 12 tribes of Israel.
There you go.
So before Jacob, they would have been the Aparu or the Hebrew. After Jacob, they became known as the 12 tribes of Israel.
Israelites.
Because, I'll say it another way, the 12 sons of Israel, or the 12 sons of Jacob.
Yeah.
And of course, those 12 sons had sons and daughters who had sons and daughters, so they became tribes.
Right.
You know?
Of course, yeah.
I mean, even in present-day Egypt, big families, all families are referred to as tribes.
Wow.
Even today in Egypt.
There you go.
And they're known by their names, you know what I mean? They follow through the tribes, their lineage by their names. So the Israelites and their whole existence in a way, because they're named after Jacob, who becomes Israel, is based on somebody who has had an encounter with God. And that encounter, it's implied in the story, if you listen to what happened. He goes up the ladder, the 7-rung ladder, so we could say the 7-rung ladder, are the 7 chakras. Yeah. Meets with God, wrestles with God, and then comes back down the ladder, and his name is changed. So You could say that is the story of somebody dying and being reborn again in the same body.
Yes, we were discussing that about
Yeah.
how it's the process of ascension.
And I know I've
Mystery
referred
initiates were
to
meant
death
do.
a few times, in the past few podcasts, while at the same time saying there is no death. So it sounds a bit paradoxical. But what I'm trying to say is, in the 3D, there's the illusion of death. Because when somebody dies, the body dies. The body ceases to be animated.
Mm-hmm.
Something leaves the body on death. And so, therefore, we perceive that as the end of that person's life. Because the body has ceased to be moving around and to be talking. And so, in a 3D consciousness, we see that as death. But what we don't see is what happens to the animating principle, the consciousness, when it leaves the body. We just see the body after the consciousness is left. We don't see the consciousness leaving. We don't see what happens to it.
Mm-hmm.
So in our 3D consciousness, we call that death. So when I'm talking about death, and when I maybe did mention it in the past few podcasts, while at the same time saying there's no death, that's what I mean. I mean, in 3D consciousness, what we would refer to as death is when the body ceases to exist. But that's not death, because there is no death. Consciousness is eternal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what all this information is about.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to clear, because I thought maybe it's confusing enough, really, isn't it, without making it a bit more confusing.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe I didn't make that clear enough,
And was there the thing as well you're saying about Akhenaten that you wanted to bring up as well about you called somebody like the daughter of Akhenaten? Or...
Oh, I did, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. In one of the podcasts, I actually said Akhenaten was the daughter of Amenhotep.
Yeah.
It was just a slip of the tongue. It was a stupid thing to say. I meant to say son.
Yeah.
I just, in case I confused anybody, I meant to say the son of Amenhotep, not the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I don't notice myself saying things like that,
Mm-hmm. Well, you're on the roll.
Well, that's it, yeah.
And Antoinette gets on the roll quite a lot.
That's it.
I have to listen to what I'm saying.
No, keep going.
So, we were talking about Tutankhamun as well in relation to all of this. And one of the things I also wanted to talk about, which I it's a continuation really on from probably the last one.
Mm-hmm.
More so because I was talking more so about Tutankhamun in that one.
Yeah.
Yes, the Irish-Egyptian lineage.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I had been talking as well about how Tutankhamun was the Redeemer Messiah, and the character that Jesus was based on in the Bible. Now, when I say Tutankhamun, okay, in my opinion, the character that Jesus was based on was a combination of Tutankhamun and Akhenaten. That's in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of reasons for saying that, but I mean, obviously I outlaid some of the reasons why Tutankhamun is the biblical character Jesus in the last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And in the few before, I think I touched on it as well. And I was also talking about Akhenaten, and Akhenaten was the one who said, "I am the light of the world."
Yeah.
There's lots of things that Akhenaten, he said, "I'm the son of God. I am the light of the world." Sayings that Akhenaten spoke, are sayings that have been attributed to Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things is that Akhenaten wrote the poem, the hymn to the Aten.
Yes.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
And that poem became Our Father who art in heaven.
Wow.
And if you read the hymn to the Aten, you'll see how the hymn to the Aten evolved. You'll see how it is Our Father who art in heaven. So, and so, just to move on to Tutankhamun and to talk about, I suppose in a way, a bit more, not evidence, just, you know, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything, you know, and if people who are listening just listen behind what I'm saying, I'm not putting down any religion at all. What I'm actually saying is this is how rich all religions are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I'm not insulting any religion, because I'm saying, what I'm actually saying is, this is the information behind all religions.
Yeah.
You know?
It's enriching.
So I'm enriching it. My intention is to enrich and not put down, because I'm sure some people can see this as, I don't know, blasphemy or something, saying Jesus is Tutankhamun or Akhenaten, you know. But look, it's really all there, unless you just don't want to see it, you know. And in that vein, I'll go on to say what I was going to say. So the tomb of Tutankhamun, as everybody knows, is kind of, well, not everybody maybe, but a lot of people know Tutankhamun anyway. And they know the tomb and the opening of the tomb by Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon, and that in itself is another whole podcast. It wasn't actually Howard Carter who discovered the tomb at all. It was a young boy.
Yes.
Do you remember we saw the picture of the boy in
we
the...
went to his great-great-grandson's...
That was in... what's the name of that restaurant? It's in Luxor.
Habu?
On the West Bank.
No, it's...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I have...
Oh, it doesn't matter. Let's not get... Anyway.
I have it.
It was... There was... It was a young boy, actually, who discovered Tutankhamun's tomb that was helping in the dig.
He was one of the sons of one of the people working.
And there's a picture of him in a restaurant on the West Bank, and I just can't think of the name of it. We were there on the last journey, so I was just trying to think of the name. But anyway, back to Tutankhamun's tomb. So Tutankhamun's tomb is in the Valley of the Kings, and it's one of the smallest tombs, if probably not the smallest tomb in the valley.
Oh no, it's very small.
And you know, when you go to the Cairo Museum, the old Cairo Museum is what I'm talking about anyway, before, you know, I think his stuff is still in the old Cairo Museum anyway. But when you go to the Cairo Museum and you see the Tutankhamun display, and then if you go to Luxor and you go inside the tomb of Tutankhamun, you'll just understand what I mean when I say there's no way all of that stuff could have been inside that tomb. There's no way, because where the actual shrines and sarcophagi of Tutankhamun was, if you look at the images of when the tomb was discovered, the sarcophagi were the last shrine in which all the sarcophagus were inside, and there was 9 of them.
Yeah.
They literally reached the ceiling of the tomb. Howard Carter was sitting, like, his head touching the ceiling. There's pictures of him, you know. So the tomb itself took up the whole area where, not the tomb, sorry, the shrines and the sarcophagus in which Tutankhamun was buried.
Because it was a very small space.
Took up the whole area of the tomb.
Yeah.
And so there was only a small area left for all these so-called things that came out of his tomb, which take up like 2 floors of the Cairo Museum.
How did they get it all in there?
It's crazy. Like, I mean, anybody who's visited the tomb will know that the tomb is so small. So I was just going to...
the water boy's name was Hussein Abdel Rasool.
Oh, that was the boy who... there was a boy who found Tutankhamun's tomb.
Yes.
Did you find out what restaurant it was?
I'm looking for the restaurant now, but it talks all about him.
Christine was just...
she's on it.
She was just checking the name of the boy. But, so the tomb of Tutankhamun and the image... what I would say now at this point is anyone listening who's interested in what I'm saying would be a good idea to get up an image of the tomb of Tutankhamun. And I'm going to talk about what's on the wall behind the sarcophagus of Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun is still inside his tomb. You know, his body is still inside the tomb. So on the wall behind the sarcophagus.
If it is his body.
You can't say that for a lot of the other tombs.
No. But so the wall on the images on the wall behind, there's a lot can be said about those images anyway, but I mean the tomb itself is clearly, it was rushed, you know. But that's another thing in itself. Like, there's a lot of evidence as to show. I mean, the obvious thing is how it's not as ornately decorated as other tombs. There's like paint splash marks in it and things like that, which have given the idea that it was a rushed tomb. You know, so
Rushed burial?
A rushed burial, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the tomb was
creation.
He wasn't expected to die.
Yes, that young.
Because they would have a tomb prepared.
Yeah.
So it appears that they didn't have a tomb prepared for Tutankhamun. So they had to either use someone else's tomb. And finish it in a hurry. Yeah. You know. So this is the tomb anyway that he was eventually buried in, whether it was meant in the beginning for him or not. But anyway. So on the wall that I'm talking about is the wall behind the sarcophagus, and it's you would say the resurrection scene. Okay?
Oh.
So, for example, the resurrection of Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is what we're going to talk about here. So if you haven't got the image of Tutankhamun's tomb up and the wall behind the tomb, then it'll be hard for you to follow. So I suggest you get that up and look at what I'm...
Mm-hmm. We have one here.
On the right-hand side, you see a character holding up, like it's like a hook or like a kind of a hooked knife or something on the end of a stick. Yeah. But what that is actually for the opening of the mouth, to give the soul voice in the next world or the eternal world or the land of the Neter. Mm-hmm. So this is I performing the opening on the right hand side of the image as you're looking at it. The one holding that is I. Mm-hmm. And he is performing the opening of the mouth ceremony on Tutankhamun, who's the one standing represented as an Osiris figure.
Yeah, in the white.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So behind him, you see another character reaching out to a female, yeah? Mm-hmm. So this other one on the right is Tutankhamun, and the one on the left in the middle is Nut. Nut represents heaven. So here's Tutankhamun touching heaven, reaching out to heaven. They're touching each other. Yeah?
Yeah.
And on the furthest left, you see three figures together. So here you have the risen Osiris. Yeah?
In the green.
The father.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He's green, yeah. The one in the middle is Horus, the son. Mm-hmm. And the one on the furthest right is Tutankhamun, the eternal Holy Spirit.
And this triple...
It's the 3-in-1.
Yeah, there's three images of depictions of
three aspects. Right.
That's where the Trinity, the 3-in-1, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's it.
So, Christine just showed me the name of the restaurant. It's the Masam restaurant on the West Bank in Luxor. That the picture of the boy, they're related to the boy who originally found Tutankhamun's tomb.
There you go.
The people who own the restaurant.
The story says he was on a donkey and a bottle of water, a jar of water broke, and he just happened to see it go down the steps.
Revealed. What? There you go.
Yeah.
So basically, what I've described there on the wall of Tutankhamun's tomb is the resurrection.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of Jesus.
The 3-in-1.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, the whole of, as I mentioned, Catholicism, if you like, Christianity, comes from all of this ancient information that I'm talking about. And from these particular characters of the 18th dynasty that I said the Bible
Yes.
Was based on. So, the idea of the whole funerary rituals and rites and the embalming of the body and all that kind of thing was, as I said, so that the soul or the eternal spirit could reanimate the body and become an ascended, because you had to come back into the same body.
Yeah.
Death is about leaving the body and not coming back. Reincarnation is a different thing to ascension. Reincarnation is when you die and you're born in another body, different life, different time, different...
And your memory is wiped.
And your memory is wiped. Ascension is when you go through what we call the death process, retain the memory all the way through. So when the consciousness leaves the body, the consciousness doesn't lose any continuity. It realizes that it's left a body. It realizes that it's in a different state of being.
Yeah.
And the reason for all the images, if you go into the Valley of the Kings, as in Tutankhamun's tomb, the images, including the pictograms and the hieroglyphic inscription on the walls, all of it comes from the book of Coming Forth by Light, the book of the Amduat, the book of what's in the Amduat. Collectively, the book of Coming Forth by Light is in different parts, but collectively, all the different parts is known as the book of Coming Forth by Light. And as I mentioned already, that is the instructions on what the consciousness, soul, spirit has to do after it leaves the body.
Yeah, for the ascension process.
Because, yes, exactly, because if it, okay, as I mentioned, the whole reason for the mystery schools was to know how to die while alive, to learn this information while you're alive. Well, there's no point in trying to learn it after you're dead. Do you know what I mean? The idea is to learn it while you're alive, so that when your consciousness does leave the body, you know what to do. You're not afraid. You're not lost. You're not confused. You know exactly what to do. You know, because the death process can be and is very confusing for a soul that's not.
Yes.
That doesn't know this. A soul can leave the body. I'm interchanging the word soul and consciousness.
Yeah.
And spirit even.
Yeah.
I'm using those three words interchangeably.
Yeah.
Like they're the one thing.
Yeah.
The animating principle that animates all life.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. The intelligent energy that animates all life, you know. When that leaves the body, because it has been in a lower dimension, when it leaves the body, it is very confused, very lost, doesn't know where to go, doesn't know what's after happening, because it's now all of a sudden not in a physical body.
Yeah.
It's still conscious, it's still aware, it is consciousness, so it can't stop being conscious. So it's still alive, so to speak, but it's totally confused because it doesn't know what's happened.
Discombobulated, like.
So the idea of everything, the idea of everything in the mystery schools, all the information, all the teaching, all the processes, the fear, initiations, all of it, the fear is the one thing that you have to overcome. Because obviously the biggest fear is death. The annihilation of your own soul.
Yeah.
The not being anymore, not existing anymore.
Yeah.
That's the biggest fear for all people. Underneath all fears, that's the fear of your own non-existence, you know? And all of this information is to bring a light into that fear, because that is the biggest fear for anybody in the 3D. The biggest, from the minute you're born, you know, well, maybe not from the minute you're born, but at a certain age, you start to realise there's this thing called death. That people do, like your grandparents did it. Whatever, I don't want to, but anyway, you see people in your family as you grow older.
Yeah.
And you start to realise there's this thing called death. And for many people, that becomes something like a terrible black hole in their future that they feel like they're racing towards. It can has very many different effects on many different people.
Exactly.
But the reason for all this information was so that people, while they were alive, could know absolutely, factually, by direct experience, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that there was consciousness after they left their body. And once that had been established, then they were given the instructions as to what to do, so that they weren't confused, they weren't lost, and they could proceed to the land of immortality. That's what the book of Coming Forth by Light is about. It's the instructions for all of that. So you would say that at one point, somebody had to go through that death process and come back and tell people about it in order for this information even to be here in the first place. So that is exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We're talking about a lineage of people who went through this process, who effectively died, went through the process of dying, who had been fully versed in all this knowledge. So they weren't confused, they weren't lost, they knew what to do. And they could choose at that point then to carry on into what's called, providing they had passed the 42 negative confessions and the weighing of the heart. They could then proceed on to the land of the Neter, as it's called. The Neter were the gods, but Neter really means nature. Or they could choose to go back into the same body and become an ascended master and continue on instructing other people in this information. Yeah. And when you choose to come back after having gone through this death experience, all the experiences you have in that out of body state that you bring back with you into your 3D body then takes, well, it depends on the person, but it takes time to unfold for the person then to realise who they are, what they've done, why they're here. And so in that way, this is how this information has been carried down. So it's like if you were going through a foreign land and you had somebody that said, I volunteer to go there first, see what it's like, and I'll come back and tell you about it. So that's what these initiates, masters, were doing. They were crossing the veil of what we call life and death. They were encountering and experiencing all the information, everything they would learn, every experience they would go through. Have the realizations and the knowing. Once you leave the body, you're outside 3D time. You're back in creator consciousness. So, very much like a shaman.
Yeah.
Which is really, it is the same thing.
Yeah.
So then those ones who chose to come back into the body, the same body, were the ascended masters who carried on the mystery schools. So you can see how important the lineage of the people that I'm talking about is. And it's really important for the time that we're in now. And I said, I think it was in the first podcast that, you know, we've all seen the kind of accelerated evil in the past 2 years.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Well, I actually meant to say 3 years. I meant to say since 2020, you know. And I think we all know what I'm referring to there, what happened in 2020. And since then. So we've really started to see this archonic dark net accelerate. But also what you're seeing is people clearly been able to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
More and more and more. So this is really the apocalypse, the revealing.
Yeah.
This time now. You know, I said before on a video we did at Tara one day that it was said that it was a 10-year window from 2012 to which 10 years would bring you to 2022. When humanity would pass through what was called the time of no time.
Yeah, time of no time.
And when they would come out after it, within that time of no time, everybody was making a choice. Whether to remain in the 3D or whether to ascend. I'm just putting that simply.
Yes.
And by the end of that 10-year period, which would bring you to 2022, all souls made a choice. Either they wanted to repeat 3D or they wanted to ascend. There's no judgment.
Yeah, exactly. It was just a choice.
Everybody gets there eventually. It's just a choice. So wherever you are now is where you chose to be.
That's it.
But from now on, that for anybody who has chosen the ascension timeline, if you like, that archonic energy, that dark net is over. It's gone. It's over.
Yes, what we're witnessing now is a collapse of that energy.
And this is where, when I was talking about Heka, Saya, and Hu, you know, divine magic, divine wisdom, divine word, and divine utterance. We now have the ability, we always did. It's just we're in now anyone who chose the ascension timeline, or the ascension, I'll just say timeline, now have the ability to manifest.
Yeah.
Using Heka, Saya, and Hu. So remember, Hu is a vibration, a frequency. And your vibration and your frequency is expressed through your voice. So, we were made in the image of God, isn't this what we're told? In the beginning was the Word, as we mentioned. God said, "Let there be light." I know I'm skipping. I'm not quoting exactly. And also it was said that God made man and women in its own image. Yeah. So that's a fractal. That's a fractal. And so here we are at geometry, yeah. So the fractal is a holographic, I won't say representation, but a fractal is a hologram of the whole. In other words, a fractal is everything, has everything, as the whole does. It's just on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
So this is what Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, this lineage, the mystery schools, this is the wisdom they were upholding. This is the knowledge they were upholding. Is that, as I mentioned, because the people had, their consciousness had kind of fallen to the degree that they needed to be able to touch the God or tangibly feel it. But Akhenaten was trying to communicate to the people, and he did successfully communicate to a lot of people, and he successfully brought a lot of people through ascension.
Women, right?
A lot of women, yeah. But what he was communicating was that, in the sense that we were made in God's image, which is expressed in the Bible, it's just been distorted. Meaning that we are a fractal, which means that we have all the skills, abilities, attributes, everything that the Creator possesses.
Yeah.
We are the Creator. If you actually apply any thinking to it, you'll realise that you can't be anything other than the Creator. If the Creator created everything, how can you be outside that? You are part of it. It's like a playwright who writes a play. So the characters in the play take on a life of their own. But the characters in the play come from the mind of the playwright.
Yes.
As much as they may take on a life of their own. They still were born immaculately conceived in the mind of the playwright.
Yeah.
So that's how this reality comes into being. That's how the Creator created. All the world's a stage.
Oh.
In Luxor Temple itself is built in the image of a person lying on the ground.
Yes.
And the temple was built, dedicated in a way to the conception, birth and growth of the divine, immaculately conceived child.
Yes.
And this is a podcast in itself, so I'm not going to go, I'm just saying it as a by statement, if you know what I mean. But in the temple, in the part of the temple that relates to the head, and in particular the area of the third eye, is where the conception of the divine child takes place. So, when it's said that we were created in the image of the Creator, in other words, humanity, man and woman, what it's stating is that as the Creator created, with the only substance there is, the only substance there is to create is thoughts, which make a sound.
Yes.
We were discussing this,
which create the light, which create the reality.
The vibration, the frequency, the light, yeah.
So, there is only one substance to create with, and that's thoughts and ideas and collectively consciousness. Yeah. So, it's the movement of consciousness, and movement of consciousness is thought, idea. It's the movement of consciousness which created the vibration, the word, which created the light. Remember? But what came before the word, the movement of consciousness, the thought? So for the thought, you had to have wisdom. Yeah? And to make that into something is magic. So before the word, which is who, divine word, divine utterance, you have wisdom and magic, Heka and Saya. this is just another way the mystery school initiates would be taught how what we call our reality came into being. Because what we call our reality is not a solid substance that's, excuse the pun, written in stone,
Yes.
unchanging,
Yeah.
That we have no control over. Most people feel they're like a cork bobbing on the sea.
Just going
Life
like
happens
this.
to them.
Yeah.
Things happen to them. No, you're the creator of it all. You're the creator of it all. Even though you don't know it. I mean, who keeps your heart beating? Who makes you blink like so many times every second?
All your unconscious biorhythms.
Who keeps your liver function and your kidney function and your lymphatic system and your blood system and your digestive system and your skeleton system?
Mm-hmm.
Who keeps all that going? You do.
Mm-hmm.
But you do it unknown to yourself.
Yeah.
You do. You see, this is what creation is. Creator moves so far away from itself that it forgets itself. And then it goes on the journey to find it again.
Yeah.
Like the hero's journey kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And often people might say, why? Because that's creation. That's how creation happens. If that movement stopped, then there'd be no creation.
Yeah,
exactly.
There'd be no life. There'd be no... So it's all this information that, to put it all kind of, I suppose, into one streamlined sentence, it would be the mystery schools were there so that the knowledge that this life is not all there is always was ever present for those who sought that information.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's when you think that there's nothing more than this life, that's when you lose everything.
Yeah.
It's very easy to fall under the sway of the Archon energy, which is lies, deceit, manipulation. And that
Fear.
doesn't mean that you're just subjected to the lies. You can become the liar,
Yeah.
the manipulator. And the Archon energy, as I mentioned, doesn't just attack you from people around you. It attacks you from inside out as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because when you're running that negative dialogue that's telling you you're this, that, the other, no good, all of this, that's that Archon energy.
Mm-hmm.
You are creator. You are the creator. Collectively, we are the creator.
That reminds me of the first podcast, Breaking the Spell. Like to
Yes,
become aware that it's like people who are unconscious of what the metaphysical reality is. In other words, being aware, their consciousness is being sucked into the programs of the archons, right? Like, in other words, movies, films, things. They're getting all these amazing creator beings to create their reality because they're unconscious. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So, it was to communicate, as I said, that death is a process. It's a transmutation. It's a movement from one state of being to another. Like, for example, ice melts into water.
Yes.
It's not gone.
No, yeah.
It hasn't disappeared. It hasn't ceased to exist.
Energy can neither be created nor destroyed.
Exactly. It just changes form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if we can compare what we call our solid reality to ice, or our solid body to ice. So what we call death is when the ice melts, when the solid body ceases to exist.
Away, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We call that death. But we know that when ice melts, you have water. What we don't see when the body melts, like the ice comparison, we don't see the water.
Yeah.
So we don't realise, so we think there's nothing after that. So all this information was left to communicate actually and factually. And what I mean by that is that the person communicating the information has to have walked the walk, talked the talk, and gone through the death experience and come back into the same body. Otherwise, they're not qualified to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And once that process has happened, all you can do as your mission in the 3D, your only reason for being, is to continue to communicate this information.
Yeah, to be a teacher or master.
Why do you think I'm doing this?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't forget my whole journey started with a motorbike accident.
Yeah.
That's right.
You are the mission keeper.
So, you know, I just want to kind of tie that together with what I was talking about Ireland, you know, because
Yeah, how does that connect to Ireland?
well, Ireland plays such an important role in the now, if you know what I mean. In you know, it is called the Emerald Isle, and collectively, all this information is also contained in what's known as Hermetic is the Greek word, but the Hermetic texts, which in ancient Egypt, Hermes was known as Thoth or Jehuti. And Thoth is really Heka, Saya, and Hu rolled into one being.
Ah, that's
because
great.
It says Thoth is the god of magic, the god of writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's he who sung the universe using the sound of his voice into existence.
Mm-hmm.
So
vibration.
He's the wisdom keeper of the master of the mystery skulls.
Mm-hmm.
He's the man. He's the wisdom keeper.
Yeah.
So you would say Thoth is Heka, Saya, and Hu in one. He's the one. He embodies all those three.
Wow.
And
when you embody,
Atlantean,
sorry, Christine.
right? Oh, go ahead.
That's right. Yeah, you have the Emerald Tablets of Thoth.
Yeah.
And when you embody all of those three, you are at the level of consciousness, because you can't embody Sekha. You can't understand these concepts and embody these energies until you, in actual fact, the act of understanding these concepts, the act of embodying these energies is what raises your consciousness to the level of being able to create what's called Mat.
Yes.
And Mat is truth, equality. We spoke about this already.
Yeah.
And one of the things I didn't actually say was the name of Akhenaten was always written with a quote, we could say, underneath his name. And that was Ankh on Mat. Ankh on Mat. A-N-K-H, separate word E-N, separate word M-A-A-T. Ankh on Mat. And that means eternal life in truth, in justice, in equality, in love, because remember, Mat represents truth, equality, justice, love.
Mm-hmm.
So everywhere underneath his name you would find that inscription. Ankh on Mat, life in eternal truth, or eternal life, because Ankh means eternal life. Eternal life in, you can say truth, love, justice, any of those words. Remember, the fall came. You could say the fall came when the first lie was told.
Yeah.
When was the first lie told? In the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
When Adam and Eve were tempted
Mm-hmm.
with the apple, remember? From the
Yeah.
tree that they weren't meant to eat anything.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge?
There was the tree of
Knowledge
good and
is-
evil,
yeah.
and the tree of, what was it? Tree of life.
Tree life. Okay.
How did I forget that? The tree of life and the tree of good and evil. But anyway, they were told not to go near those trees. They could have anything else, but don't go near the trees. So what did they do? Go near the trees. But anyway, so they're lied to. Somebody is lying
Yeah.
in the Garden of Eden story, because one person, the Lord, and that's another interesting thing. So all along we have God, you know, and then when it comes to the creation of Adam and Eve, like before Adam and Eve, it's all God.
Yeah.
In the beginning was the Word was with God. God said, let there be light. It's all about God,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
and
Up
then
until
it's-
Adam and Eve. Then when it comes to Adam and Eve in the garden,
Yeah.
now suddenly we have the Lord.
Yes, exactly.
So who's the Lord? Because he's obviously something different to God.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because the Lord is now talking to them. It's not God anymore. So Adam and Eve are in the garden, and the Lord tells them, don't go near any of the tree, don't go near the tree of good and evil and the tree of life. But anyway, the woman is tempted by the serpent. But the Lord tells them, if you eat of the tree, you'll surely die. Yeah? The serpent in the tree tells them, the Lord is lying. If you eat of the fruit, you will become like gods.
That's it, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Somebody is lying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's lying?
Who's lying? Is it the Lord or is it the serpent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Could it be I think it's the Lord.
Well, Adam and Eve ate of the
Cast
fruit.
your votes.
Yeah. So somebody was lying. It was either the Lord or the serpent.
I think the Lord too.
Because it's not
well,
God. It's not
clearly
God.
pointing out something.
But Antoinette's
well,
saying
we
it's
are
not
supposed
God.
to be. Well, okay, let's reason this out. We're supposed to be the continuation of Adam and Eve, yeah.
Right.
So on the one hand, the Lord said, "Don't eat of that, or you'll die." Right. On the other hand, the serpent said, "Eat of this, and you'll become like gods." So we're the descendants. Are we like gods?
If we're created in the image of God.
We can become.
Yeah, we can become. We've been tricked again.
You know. I you know, I'm not going to say who isn't like. It's like
I know.
you know that is it Tweedledum and Tweedledee? You know the story?
Oh yes, yeah. They
The brothers
represent-
who one always tells the truth and one always lies, and one says I'm the one who tells the truth, and the other one says no, he's not. He's the liar. So I mean, it's like
Yeah, you don't know.
it's this. Yeah, exactly.
The chicken or the egg.
I read an interesting article.
chicken.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum represented by Cameron Mine.
Yeah,
Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
Male and female energy.
Oh yeah, it's all about the
Move
male and
truth,
female.
yeah.
Even Adam and Eve is about
Yes,
the male and
yeah,
female energy. And the fruit of the tree, of course, the tree of life is part of the geometry. You know.
That's exactly it.
Yeah,
Yes.
very good. Which comes from Metatron's cube.
Woohoo! It's all encoded.
So if we look, for example, just what Christine was saying there, a good point. If we look at, you know, the word universe.
Yeah.
Yes.
So uni means one, yeah, or single. And a verse is writing arranged with a metrical rhythm.
Ooh.
Okay, which means not metrical, but like the rhythm having a rhyme.
Yeah. There's a meter.
So metrical means involving measurement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the universe is one writing, yeah,
Yeah.
arranged with rhythm involving measurement.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now metrical comes from meter,
Yeah.
which
meter.
comes from Metatron.
Ah, Metatron. Yay.
Metatron and Metatron's cube is the final stage in our flower life geometry.
Yeah.
And Metatron is another name for Thoth.
Yes.
Yes, the one who sung the universe into creation.
Exactly. Now,
And it
the
wasn't
tablets of
Atlantean.
Thoth, of course, were the emerald tablets.
Yes, the emerald
emerald tablets of Thoth.
Yes.
And of course, Ireland is the Emerald Isle,
Mm-hmm.
And the Isle of Fire as well, right?
the Island of Flame.
Flame. Yeah.
So, Ireland is the Emerald Isle. So, there's another piece of evidence as to how this information came to Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people will say it's called the Emerald Isle because of everything is green. You know,
Well observed, but
But-
also no.
Quite literal.
It's well, okay, yeah. I mean, we can say it's to
On
do
the
with that, but
face.
it's about the Emerald tablets, and we said about the tablets that were contained in the Ark of the Covenant that Taya Tefi brought in.
Oh, here comes a Tara Connect.
So they're also the Emerald tablets. They were also known as the Emerald tablets.
Yeah.
So the information in the Book of Coming Forth by Light, and the Emerald tablets, and the books of Thoth,
Yes.
it's the same. It's different names for the same
Yes.
Exactly.
thing. And the stone that Taya brought in was the stone that Jacob, who became Israel,
That's right.
had this transmutation of going through the death process, meeting with God, consciousness, himself, itself,
Yes.
coming back down, in other words, coming back into the physical body,
Yeah.
and then the name change. The name change signifies that he was reborn as Israel.
That's it.
So the descendants from there on in are the descendants of an ascended master. Now I know that's not the story that we hear
Yeah.
in today's thing
Of
about
course.
but you know, a lot of people think in terms of Jews, you know, that's one. The tribe of Judah was one son of Jacob, one tribe.
Okay.
So the Jews are Israelites, yeah,
Yeah.
but not all Israelites are Jews.
That's right. Yeah.
All Jews are Israelites, but not all Israelites are Jews.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because Judah was only one of the sons of Jacob, Israel.
The 12 tribes.
Yeah.
Tribes.
Yeah.
Tribes.
Yeah. So Judah is an Israelite because he's the son of Jacob, Israel.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so is Joseph.
I was just saying, what are the other sons?
And we say Joseph, I mentioned his name as Yoya.
That's right.
But if I say his full name, you'll know his name was actually in Egypt, Yoyasef.
yeah, so
that's
there's
where
where
Joseph-
the Joseph comes
Even
from.
more.
So he was another son of, so he was also an Israelite, as we
Yeah.
said. So there's the tribe of Dan,
That's right. That comes to Ireland,
which
right?
of course is the Tuatha De Dan.
Yeah.
And Tua in Gaelic means land.
That's right.
So you could say Land of Dan.
Land of Dan.
Ireland, the two of they Dan. Or Dannon, the two of they Dan.
Yeah.
And also the river, the
So-
Danube.
I can't remember the
Right.
12 names. Yeah, on all the rivers. Yeah. I can't remember all of the 12 names. There's Ephraim, Naphtali, Joseph, Judah, Dan.
Dan, that's 5.
I can't remember.
No, you just said another one before.
Did I? I don't remember all 12. Maybe you might want to look at them there.
I'll look them up.
But
I shall look them up.
so anyway, remember I mentioned earlier that before Jacob, they weren't known as Israelites. It's only from Jacob because his name was changed.
Yeah.
So before that, they were known as Aparu or Hebrew. Yeah.
That's right.
So if you look at the name for Ireland, because Ireland has had many different names: Bamba, Eire, Fodla,
Yeah.
Hibernia, and Scota.
And Scota.
So Ireland was also known as Scota, but Ireland was known as Scota Mór, and in Gaelic, Mór means big.
Yeah.
So that would imply that there was a small Scota,
Yeah.
and there is. So Scota Beag was still today what it's called Scota Land.
Yeah.
Scota Beag was small Scota, which today is Scota Land, Scotland.
Yes.
And that's one thing I didn't mention actually when I was saying about the Irish and that. I did say that the Atlantean civilization was a worldwide civilization centred at Ireland and particularly at Tara. But also, I wanted to say that the Irish, the English, the Welsh, the Scottish were all the same people. So I should have mentioned that. So I don't want to make a distinction between Irish and English and
They're all the same family, basically. Right?
well, there's slightly intermingled, but there's the lineage that goes through a certain lineage that of Irish, English, Scottish, and Welsh, and they're all from the same
Branch.
lineage
Yeah. I understand.
that we're talking about. So I mentioned that the daughter of Akhenaten and the sister of Tutankhamun or Tutankhaten is buried in County Kerry in Tralee, and her name was Scota. So Ireland was actually named after her. Scota Land. She must have been pretty important to name,
To name a
the
whole
country
country
after. And it says that she had, I think it was 6 sons she had, and Ireland was divided
Into her, for her sons.
for her sons and given the names. But all of Ireland also, I mean, one of her sons was Hiber. So you think of Hiber,
Hibernia.
Hibernia.
Yeah. Hiberno English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ireland was named after Scota herself, but it was also named after one of her sons.
Why this son? Why this son?
Yeah, well, all her. Well, Hiber, his name was Hiber, so Hiber is where Hebrew comes from. Hibernia. The Aparu carries the
Of course.
original name before they became
Yeah.
the Israelites.
Yeah.
You know. And who are the Hebrew? If you look into the language, as we said yesterday, between Hebrew and Gaelic, there's a good couple of books I would say that people could read if they're interested from Conor McDarry.
Oh, yeah.
And
Very good.
he talks about Hebrew and Gaelic, but you can do a Google search and find information on Hebrew and Gaelic. You know, Gaelic being the original language.
Yeah, of course.
So that would mean, really, then the Bible is an Irish book. It was written in Gaelic, and this is what Conor McDarry writes about as well. In fact, the title in one of his books is "The Bible, an Irish Book." So, and you know, again, you mentioned it, I think, in one of the other podcasts about Ireland being the land of saints and scholars.
I did, yeah, because that's a
Well, this is
a
why
well-known term about
why
Ireland.
Ireland has always been known as the
course.
land of saints and scholars. This is why Ireland has always been known for its wisdom, its knowledge, and why we are literally everywhere in the world.
exactly
The Irish are literally everywhere in the world.
literally everywhere in the world.
This information is in our DNA. This information of who we are and
Yeah.
what we are. And really, if the Irish wake up, we can change the world.
Yeah.
They have the ability.
They have the DNA for the
they have
job.
it. And yet, for the most part, you know, they're being black magicked.
Oh,
They're under
absolutely.
black magic's
The archons are reigning
hypnotic spell.
supreme.
But if and when I'll say when, the Irish wake up, when their higher self-knowing is activated,
We should say
it'll be over in an act, you know. It already is. It's just it has to evolve in time, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Everything happens now, so it's already been done. It
3D
just has to
timeline
evolve
is
in
the
the
only
3D.
problem.
So, as I mentioned, there was many ways that this information was distorted, and another way I just wanted to talk about was in terms of calendars.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
now we have a calendar that's 365 and a quarter, 365.25 days.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, where does like a quarter day come from? Do you know what I mean? You can't have a quarter day. So that's why they invent leap years, which basically means that the calendar is not accurate. If you have to invent a leap year, you know, to add up, like every 4 years there's an extra day. But that's the 0.25 days every year for 4 years, all added up into one day. That's just like, that's not a natural, organic cycle,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So in ancient Egypt, they had a calendar. And also the calendar we use, well, we think we use, is the solar calendar. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So in ancient Egypt, they had a calendar that was, it had 10 days in a week, 3 weeks in a month, and 12 months a year, which was 360 days a year.
Mm.
So what's a circle? 360 degrees.
Exactly.
So if you can see, that would be, even though time still is a mental construct, 360 days is actually the upright jed, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned that the jed symbolizes many things. It symbolizes the fall of man because it's tilted at an angle.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the jed pillar and the whole ritual of raising the jed, which is what took place in Abydos, where the flower of life symbol is found in the Assyrian temple,
Yeah.
that's where the raising of the jed took place.
At that place.
So the jed is raised from a tilted angle to an upright angle. Now, in this instance, the jed relates to many things. I said it was the backbone of Osiris. It relates to many things. It also relates to the axis of the earth. So the tilted axis as opposed to the upright axis.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at like a gyroscope, a child's toy, when you press it and it spins around, you know, one of those toys. As that toy slows down, it starts to tilt at an angle.
Yeah.
And it starts to wobble.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. That's what happens when something is revolving on a tilted axis. Okay?
Yes.
That's the dark net I was talking about. That's the fall of man. That's the visual of the fall of man, of the dark net. It's tilted off center.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Like the earth is.
Exactly. It's off center.
And
Now, if you think of the axis of the earth as the jed pillar, and think of raising the jed, so what you're doing is you're pulling that axis back up into an upright position. Now, if you look at a gyroscope, the toy that we were talking about, and you press it when it's in an upright position, right? It spins really, really fast.
Yeah.
And it doesn't wobble. True?
Yes, that's true.
So if the axis of the earth was in an upright position, it would be spinning faster than it is.
And there'd be no seasons, right?
It's the spin of the earth that creates the consciousness.
That's it.
And the level of consciousness, not creates, dictates the level of consciousness of everything that's living on it.
Yeah.
Everything that's attached to it.
Yeah.
The earth is a living being as well.
Of course.
So when the earth raises its consciousness, okay,
Yeah.
and raising the jed, bringing the tilted axis into an upright position, is the ancient Egyptian mystery school visual of bringing everything back into the organic net. And that was symbolized by the calendar that they had, which was 360 days, which means the axis would be upright.
Yeah.
Yes.
The 5 1/4 days came when the fall happened,
Yeah.
when the axis was tilted.
Yes.
So there's another story in. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to ask about, so the fall of man, according to the Bible, is when they ate the apple, right?
Yes.
So I was just thinking that's
They were kicked
something
out
to
of the
do
garden.
with that Garden
Yeah.
of Eden, which would be equal to equal now. Everything
So
Yeah.
in balance.
the Garden of Eden is when it's upright axis and it's spinning fast. And
Before
it's
they got the apple, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Before
I
they
just,
ate the apple, where nobody was eating animals, where everyone was living in harmony. And the
Before they
earth
ate
itself
at
had
all.
no
It's not about
seasons.
eating animals. It's about eating at all.
Yeah, because
No.
when you're in
There's a-
higher consciousness, you don't need to eat. That's right.
So
People who
I
get
just
their
wanted to
energy
like
from
clarify that for myself, but
no, that's fine.
from the sun, you know.
Yeah.
Sun gazers, you know, they don't need to eat.
So there's a story in. That's what Akhenaten was.
That's it. Yeah.
His-
And misconstrued.
His temples were always left with no roof.
That's right.
All the other Egyptian temples were roofed, but when Akhenaten built his temple in Tel Armana, it had no roof, so the sun was shining in all the time. But it wasn't the sun, as I mentioned, the atom, the consciousness
yes,
that's carried in the light.
of the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the Ra.
Not Ra. No, Ra was. It says in the there's creation stories as there is all over the world in every culture.
Yes.
And in Egypt, it talks about the mound of creation. Remember, I was talking
We
about
were
the
talking-
Edfu building texts and the mound of creation, like the mounds that we have in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in the creation text, it says that Ra came forth from the mound. Yeah, the sun was the first thing. So you had the waters, and then you had the mound so that was kind of the first land.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
This is one of the Egyptian creation stories. First of all, you had the waters of chaos.
Yes.
Then you had the mound that arose from the waters.
Nun.
Then Nun was the waters.
Yeah.
Then you had the mound that arose from the water. Then you had Ra, the firstborn, who was the sun, who went into the sky to give the light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, if you think of how all the mounds are aligned to the light of the sun.
Newgrange.
So in the creation
Yes.
story, right, if the sun was born from the mound, then the reason for the alignment of the mounds to the sun is effectively so that the sun is going back into the womb, the mound, from which it was birthed.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
so basically it's a season or a cycle. I said that
course.
word. It's a cycle of conception by light.
Well, yes, and it
Exactly.
says, I know I was talking about the Messiah yesterday as being relating to
Yeah,
the
podcast, yeah.
crocodiles, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And two crocodiles being Messiah, which becomes the word Messiah.
Right.
But also the concept of the Messiah also comes from the word mess, which is to do with birth and rebirth. But it's not just any kind of birth and rebirth. It's the Messiah was the one who was the ever coming manifester. He was the one that was ever manifesting anew in time, which is interesting. You know, that it's in time. So
that a cycle is what they're talking about.
yeah, the Messiah ship, in other words, the descent of the Messiah from one to the other was cyclical, what you were just saying about,
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
and followed the cycles of time. So, Ra and Repa, which is the counterpart, were the representations of the manifestation as personifications of the soul or Messiah
Interesting.
in time, if you know what I mean. In the two aspects of the Father and the Son, Osiris and Horus.
Whoa.
Does that make-
Whoa.
Does any of them?
It does. No, it does. It's just there's a lot
Horus is the sun.
complexity
He's
to it.
So
He's the SON and the SUN.
Oh no, that makes sense.
so as I
Osiris
mentioned,
is
they had
nature.
360 days.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
the
remember,
calendar.
they were keeping to this organic
net.
we'll say, yeah. And in order to do that, they were keeping everything in as there's 360 degrees in a circle.
Yes.
So 365 and a quarter. You can see is
what?
off center. That's not,
Purposefully.
you know.
purpose.
Well, it's
360 is balanced, 365 and a quarter is not.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the whole point is consciousness fell, right? So they weren't capable of understanding or knowing that or being in harmony.
Or
They were
balancing.
like, "What day am I?"
So it
Who am
talks in ancient Egypt. It kind of gives you a story as to how this happened. So it says that, you know, where did the extra 5 and a quarter days come from?
Yeah. Where did they get them from?
So it says that Ra cursed Nut, who was heaven. Yeah,
What?
the sky. Some people say it's sky.
Yeah.
Ra cursed Nut and said that no children of hers could be born on any day of the year. Now we have a story, something similar, connected with Thoth in Ireland, about the sun being made to stand still
Yes.
because
Dagda.
the workmen couldn't finish till the sun set,
Oh yeah.
and Bress made the sun stand still, so the workers kept on working because they couldn't, they weren't allowed to stop work until the sun set. So Bress, using magic, made the sun not
Stand
go
still.
down.
Yeah.
So they just kept working and working. They were working for ages,
Yeah.
thinking it was the same day. 'Cause
Yeah.
the sun never
That
set.
happens a lot in Irish.
I was just
in
gonna say
Irish-
that's like not an uncommon
in
thing for
Irish
somebody
mythology.
to stand still.
Sure, I did that the other day.
What do you mean, day?
But I'm just saying it's similar.
Yeah.
It's similar to the story
Of that story.
of Thoth. So
Yes.
where did the extra 5 and a quarter days come from? When in this ancient wisdom, which, as we said, came from Atlantis.
Yeah.
How come we went from the 360, which is perfectly balanced? It's a circle. There's no more
Yeah.
balanced structure in nature than a circle. It's the most balanced structure in nature. So where did we get the 5 and a quarter days from?
Yeah.
So in ancient Egypt, there's a story told about how Thoth played dice with the moon.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Now, it says something interesting because it says that the moon had so much light of its own, it had its own light.
Ooh.
We're told that the moon reflects the light of the sun.
Exactly.
But in ancient Egypt, in this story, it says that the moon has its own light and it had loads of light.
Wow.
And Thoth played dice with the moon. Don't forget, Ra had cursed Nut and
Yeah.
told her none of your children can ever be born on any day of the year, which meant she couldn't have children.
Yeah.
Nut was heaven,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
or the sky, if you like. And so Thoth playing dice with the moon and using his magic and continuing to win game after game after game, eventually won enough light from the moon to make the 5 and a quarter days out of the light. So he made 5 and a quarter days from the light that he won from the moon.
Wow.
And he stuck it on the end of the year
Calendar.
to make 5 and a quarter days.
Yeah.
And he kept it separate from the rest of the days. And he put it on the end of the year, just before the new year.
Winter solstice.
So that, no, the new year in ancient Egypt,
Oh,
which
sorry.
would be the Heliacal rising of Sirius.
Yeah. So August.
Oh.
That's
okay.
important that it's connected with Sirius.
Of course, because it's not Egypt.
So the 5 and a quarter days then allowed Nut to have Osiris, Horus, Isis, Nephthys, and Set,
Yes.
the children that and they were the Neter.
Yeah, I'm with you. With
Interesting.
You. I don't know.
Interesting.
Wow.
So
Osiris.
also
Horus,
in
and
ancient
Set.
Egypt, like for example, as I said, our calendar is a solar calendar, yeah?
Yeah.
So in ancient Egypt, this 300, I said, you said the new year, like the solstice, I said it was the Heliacal rising of Sirius.
Yes, because it wasn't our calendar.
So if you look at the Heliacal rising of Sirius, the Heliacal rising of Sirius happens every 365.25 days.
Ha 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 ha.
Sound familiar?
Yeah.
So, in ancient Egypt, what they did was they run 3 calendars together.
Wow.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have a solar calendar. Mm-hmm. All of the Islamic world has a lunar calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the year in the Islamic world is not 2023. It's completely different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in ancient Egypt, they had, and they ran these concurrently. They had a solar calendar, a lunar calendar, and what's called a Sothic calendar. And the Sothic calendar is based on the revolution of Sirius A around Sirius B. Now, that doesn't sound too much like when you say it, but how do they know?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Sirius B is a neutron star. A neutron star is so small and so tiny, and Sirius A is so big
Yeah,
and so
huge.
bright that Sirius B can't be seen at all. And the only reason they even knew it was there was because it could be detected with radio telescope. In other words, they could hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, in ancient Egypt,
They knew that there was.
they knew that about the revolution of Sirius A. Sirius A
Sirius
around
B.
Sirius B. No, Sirius A revolves around Sirius B,
Wow.
around the smaller one. The Dogon tribe, I'm not going to get into this because this is going really off in a different... Well, it's not a different direction at all. It's the same topic.
Okay.
Well, it's literally deeper is going.
The Dogon tribe
Yes.
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 in Timbuktu,
Mm-hmm.
Mali,
Mm-hmm.
they have incredible information about Sirius A, Sirius B, Sirius C. And they migrated from Egypt. They would have been Egyptians like that migrated out of Egypt. That's
Yes.
how they have all this information.
Exactly.
And Sirius was an extremely important star. Remember I told you that the Shemshu-Hor were the followers
Yes.
of Horus. And, you know, a lot of people will say Horus was the sun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is, every star you see in the sky is a sun.
Yes.
That's right, a star is a sun.
A star is a sun.
A sun is a star.
Usually when you say a sun, they mean planets revolve around it, whereas a star,
No,
maybe
no.
they don't. But a star is a sun. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what sun are they talking about when they say Hor? Are they talking about our local sun? Or are they talking about Sirius? But for example, in ancient Egypt, they had the three calendars which ran together. They ran concurrently. So they had a lunar calendar, a solar calendar, and a Sothic calendar, and that was based on, as I mentioned, the revolution of Sirius A and Sirius B and the heliacal rising. And the heliacal means the star Sirius rose with the sun. I'll explain
Yes.
that in a minute, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because it disappeared from the horizon line for a certain amount of time. So in that way, the three calendars running concurrently, like the calendar we use today, yeah, has to be continuously recalibrated. That's why they have the quarter day in.
Yeah.
Because it's not accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's off. Do
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they have to keep adding an extra day every 4 years. That means recalibrating the calendar, otherwise it'll go wildly out of sync.
Yeah.
So they have to keep putting that extra leap year day in every 4 years to make up for the 0.25 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can't have 2.5, you can't have a quarter of a day.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So in other words, the calendar that we use now is inaccurate and it has to be constantly calibrated.
Yeah.
But if you look at the ancient Egyptian calendar, which was based on the 10-day week, 3 weeks a year, 12 months, 360 days, if you look at that, that was a calendars that ran, they observed solar calendar, lunar calendar, and Sirius calendar. And all three of those calendars, without them ever having to do anything, without them ever having to recalibrate or do anything, all of those three cycles, every 1,460 years, would all sync up and start a new cycle again together at exactly the same time.
Wow.
So they never had to recalibrate their calendar like we do. Who's primitive and who's civilized? Have
Exactly.
we evolved or devolved?
Devolved.
I don't know.
We're recalibrating constantly. They knew that if they ran these three calendars together,
They would never come.
they never had
be
to
out
So it's
sync.
totally in harmony with
Yeah,
nature.
that's the word to use.
You
Harmony.
see,
Yeah.
all of their
Nature.
science was in harmony with nature, with the neater.
Yeah.
Exactly. All of our science is out of harmony,
Yeah.
is anti-life. Evil is live spelled backwards, isn't it?
Yeah.
You could even say it's love spelled backwards, evil, E-V-O-L.
Yeah.
Yes, very good, Antoinette.
Yeah. So the heliacal rising of Sirius, right? I'll tell you how important it was to the ancient Egyptians. Karnak Temple and many other places in Egypt is built just to harness the light from Sirius, which shines down the accessway of Karnak Temple and into the inner sanctuary.
That's right. I've seen
For
that.
a couple of minutes every year.
It's
It
red light.
illuminates the inner sanctuary a couple of minutes every
Where
year.
we
So
went,
it must
you
have
know,
been
with the cube.
extremely important. It's the inner sanctuary in Karnak Temple. If you walk into Karnak Temple and you walk straight up the straight accessway, all the way up, you
Yes.
come to a small granite room and there's a big granite stone in the middle. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember. Stargate.
That's the inner sanctuary.
It is a star.
That room would be illuminated with the combined light from the sun and from Sirius on the heliacal rising.
Yeah, it's
and
amazing.
when is that?
Sorry?
When is that? In
It was
August?
the heliacal rising signified the new year in ancient Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was around June or July.
Okay.
July or
It changes because of
August.
precession
Depends.
Of course, yeah.
as time goes by.
But the light is red.
The light
I've
is
seen
red.
pictures.
The
The
combined
light's
light from
saturated
Sirius and
red.
the sun is red. So the inner chamber, having been in darkness all year round for 2 or 3 minutes, 4
Yeah.
minutes,
Turns red.
once a year would be illuminated in this red light, which was the combined light from our sun and from Sirius.
That's very cool.
Now, Isis in ancient Egypt represents Sirius. Osiris represents Orion. Yeah. And we think Isis is also, it says Isis is the mother of Horus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is our sun. So if Isis is Sirius and Horus is our sun, what's that saying? That's saying Sirius is the mother of our sun,
That's it.
Yeah.
isn't it?
Ooh. So.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole thing about Sirius being the spiritual sun behind the sun. Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Oh well.
The ghost in the machine.
But one thing I wanted to say is that the heliacal rising means that that Sirius rises above the horizon line
Yes.
with our sun. Okay. Why does it do that? Because every year Sirius disappears from view. Yeah. So in the northern hemisphere, where Egypt is, where Ireland is, in the northern hemisphere, when you're looking up at the sky, for 70 days every year, you won't be able to see Sirius at all because it's below your horizon line. You won't be able to see it. When Sirius rises again, after being disappeared from view for 70 days, yeah, it rises in the morning at the same time as the sun is rising. That's a heliacal rising.
Whoa.
Now, the process of mummification took 70 days.
There you go.
Based on Sirius being disappeared for
exactly.
under the... Because, let me tell you, do you see when Sirius disappears below the horizon line? That's called the duat.
Yeah.
Yes.
When the sun goes down in the evening and you can't see it anymore, it's gone down under the horizon line. The ancient Egyptians called that the duat. And they said that the sun journeyed for 12 hours of the night through the duat until it rose again in the morning. The Son of God. All right? The Son of God journeyed through the underworld. 12 hours, 12 apostles, journey through the underworld.
12.
The sun.
That's it.
And then rose, reborn again.
Yeah.
The reborn son.
That's it.
So,
Whoa.
the star Sirius in ancient Egypt was extremely important, and this
August.
all connects as well to the Great Pyramid. All this information is encoded in the Great Pyramid, in many different ways. But as I was mentioning, the mummification process took 70 days. Now, when the mummification was complete, the mummy was known as a Christ.
Oh.
K-R-S-T. Christ. That's where the word Christ comes from.
Yeah. What was mummified?
So my name.
Yes. Yeah.
Christine. I'm a Christ.
So,
I'm a crystalline mummy.
I mentioned as well that Tutankhamun had 9
Yes.
sarcophagus and shrines.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
like Russian dolls,
Yes.
one inside the other.
Yeah.
I also mentioned that 9 was the number of completion.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Reason being, there is, in a 10-base counting system, there is no number 10.
That's right.
There's only 0
To 9.
to 9. Okay? If you add all the numbers 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8, it adds to 36. 3 and 6 are 9.
Oh my god.
9 is the number of completion. 9 is the number... What's 360? 3 and 6, 9. What's half a circle? 180 degrees. 1 and 8, 9. What's a 45 degree? 4 and 5, 9. All of the dissections of a circle add up to 9. The two numbers 9 and 11, if you divide 9 into 100, it will give you 11, 11, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11.
Wow.
If you divide 11 into 100, it gives you 0, 9, 0, 9, 0, 9, 0, 9, 0. It's the only two numbers that does that.
Wow.
The 11 yields the 9 and the 9 yields the 11. Makes you think about 9/11, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Well, it makes you think about the fact that the 11s are portals and 11,
doorways,
you
yeah.
know? The two numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of geometria, in other
Yes.
words, like the geometry, underlying the geometry is numbers.
Yes.
So if I mentioned a shape to you like a triangle, what would be the number that would come into your mind associated with a triangle?
Oh, I'm not the person to ask. I'm not the
3.
person to ask.
Try.
3.
Try.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
As in
I was
Trinity.
overthinking
1,
it.
2, 3 angles.
So if I
I
said
was
to
thinking
you,
of angles from school. Like, oh no.
if I said to you a square, now a square is flat. It's not a cube. A square. If I said to you a square, how
4.
many? 4, exactly.
4.
So
4.
that's how geometry is related to number.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All language and letters of language evolved from geometric shapes. So underneath that is numbers.
Of
And
course.
for example, the Bible was written with a number code underneath it.
Okay.
That's true.
That's called geometria.
Yeah.
When each letter has a number, it represents a number.
Wow.
Encryption.
So that means then that each word is actually a mathematical equation.
Yes.
What?
Letters
Yeah.
as well. Each individual... Charlotte, each individual letter as well.
Of course. I know. That's what she was just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. The penny is dropping slow.
Yeah.
So I think we wind it up for there, will we?
Yeah.
I think so. It's
And,
1 2 2 2 2 2.
1, 2, 2, 2. Well, there you go. You
I'm
see?
afraid the geometria
Absolutely
is
wonderful.
demanding it.
So bringing it all home, bringing it all back to Ireland, you know. And
Yeah, so what will we say about Ireland?
Return to Tara, the mystery
Yay.
schools.
The Palladian Blue Mystery School.
No, return to Tara, the mystery schools, and let's just bring back the ancient knowledge of what we've just been talking about. Awaken all the Irish. And
Awaken, we are awake.
Let's come together because we really are the descendants of these people, you know. We're the masters of the mysteries, you know. Remember who we are. But for now, sending lots of love and talk soon.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.